are getting ready for a taper for any kind of race you're doing, you probably know it is one of the most mentally challenging parts, but it's the physically most rewarding, which is awesome. My name's Joe. I do these live streams every Saturday at 9 a.m. so I can go through and talk about things that are going to be relevant for you in your running. Today we're breaking down the taper. We're going to go through what your peak week is and when it should be relative to the event you're doing, when the taper should start, how much you taper by, and how, again, you taper differently for different kinds of races. Obviously, a marathon is going to have a different taper than a 5K or a 1 mile race. So let's pop straight into it. What is the peak week? As always, I go through my notes here so I get everything that I think you guys need to know for this topic. So first, peak week is going to be your highest volume week in your training block. So usually it's going to occur at the end or end-ish of your training cycle. So if you're doing 12 weeks of training, it might be somewhere around week 9, maybe week 10 or 11, depending on what race you're doing. So it's going to be your highest volume. Normally, it's going to also be the time when you have your hardest workout. So if you think about a marathon training program doing, I don't know, let's call it 16, that'd be really aggressive. 16 miles at goal pace is going to be a really hard workout, but that would look like something like 2 to 3 miles up, 16 at goal pace, 1 to 2 miles down to make a big chunk of mileage. And a lot of people might do something a little modified off of that. So you could do 4 by 4 miles and still get up around 20, 22 miles. Just for example, like that would be a really hard workout that's going to make your marathon feel better, or like you'll know going into your marathon what you think you can hit pace wise. So high volume and usually the hardest workout of your training block. And this is the time, the peak week, not necessarily taper. You can still do it as you go into taper. But this is the time where we want to be making sure everything is dialed in, because it's going to be the most similar to the conditions you're going to be racing in. So for your longest, most intense workout, you want to be using the gear you're going to use. So same shoes, race day shoes. Probably if you're using a carbon plated shoe, you want to use it. Like, you don't want to hold that off waiting for race day. You want to make sure that it fits right, feels right, especially as you're going later into your run. You want to make sure your kit is the same. So like, I know I've got a pair of half tights. I'm rocking with this half tight and I'm doing this tank. So everything I know, like I'm planning on where I'm putting my gels, where I'm I don't know, keeping water. If I'm going to use a hand bottle for a race, you usually don't have to do that. But like, are you wearing a hat? If so, wear it for your longest, hardest run so that you're ready to go come race day. So that's what the peak week is. It's your big week towards the end of your training block. Now, general rules of tapering is going to take us in a slightly different direction. So we're going to start dropping our volume. So the amount of work we're doing is starting to decrease. And again, it's going to vary. So like a 5K, you're going to taper less. Your volume is going to reduce less than you will for a full marathon. But it's a drop in volume. Frequency starts to drop. So if you're used to running 6 days a week, maybe you run 5 days a week or 4 days a week. As you get to the very end of a taper, if you're doing a short, fast taper, maybe you're only running 3 times prior to your race. Intensity, however, stays. So it doesn't have to be a lot of intensity, but if you go from doing like really big workouts where you're getting a lot of speed in and neurologically your brain is like, yeah, let's go, let's fire, and you have that speed in your legs, so to say, it's going to be really thrown off if you just cut all of that out. So you're going to cut your volume of intense work, but you can still do race pace work leading into the race as you're going through your taper. And then a really important piece that I want to talk about this is the taper is actually when super compensation happens. That's a nice vocab word for you. So if you are used to your training, like your normal fitness right here, when you go and train, you actually lose a little bit of your ability to perform at that line we established. So you actually drop a little bit because training is hard on your body. Obviously, in the middle of your peak week, if you did a marathon at the end of it, you're not going to feel great. So we go down here, but when we take our foot off the gas and we go into our taper, instead of down, we actually come up and we go above what our original baseline is. It's called super compensation, and it's how our bodies actually adapt and get better and get stronger. Also, if you guys have questions, I see a couple people have popped into the chat now. If you have questions or thoughts on any of this, how it applies to you, I'm more than happy to break this down. It's always a time for me to talk about something that I have planned out, but I want to make it applicable to you folks out there. So I really put a premium on talking in the chat and making you guys want to come back and get some value out of this. So that's what the general rules of tapering are. We're going to decrease volume, frequency is going to start to drop, and then intensity is going to be maintained so that we can supercompensate without our neurological system saying like, hey, what am I doing? Because if you don't do any speed, you just feel flat. So coming along this way, we are flipping back this direction. All right. So as I said, this is going to change by distance. Your 5K and 10K have different demands in terms of their training and how much you're going to get beat up by your training. So you don't have to do a ton of training for or a ton of taper for your 5K or 10K. Usually it's going to be 5 to 10 days, depending on how adapted you are to training. Like collegiate runners don't have to do a super long taper. They're really used to having this really big amount of volume that they're doing for their training, so that when they cut that down, they freshen up pretty dang quick. Now, if you are not used to doing as much, it's still important that we're getting some stuff going, still getting the legs moving. It's not really about aerobic adaptation anymore as much as saying like, hey body, yeah, I still need you to do this. Please don't forget how to do it. And that might be closer to a 10-day taper. So what it's going to be is roughly 70% of your weekly training volume. So yeah, let's say an average person is doing, let's do easy math, let's do 20 miles a week. Instead of doing 20, you can do like 14 miles. Or if you're used to doing 30 miles, you might do closer to 20 or 21 miles. So that reduction in volume is going to make you feel fresher. But, caveat, we're still going to do a fast workout with low volume. So, doing, let's call it 1,000 to 1,500 meters. So like a half mile, a little more than a half mile up to about a mile of work around your 5K pace, really so that your body says, yep, I am ready. I'm still neurologically in the game, as opposed to being really flat come race day. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but you start a run and you're like, wow, my legs just don't feel like they're in it. That's what we're trying to avoid. And having just a little bit of that intensity in there is going to be really helpful. For a half marathon, how long out are we going to start a taper? It's going to be about 2 weeks. Week 1 isn't going to feel like a crazy difference, but it's going to be like 70 to 80% of your normal training volume. You'll usually hit a pretty good workout still. So if you've been going above the half marathon distance for your long runs, maybe you cut it down to like 10 miles and you feel really good and snappy in the workout. You get a couple of reps around your half marathon goal pace, but let's call it around 40% of the race, about 5 or 6 miles at your goal half marathon pace, spread out so you get rest in between, so you don't get as much cumulative fatigue from it being a constant you being on the gas. Rather, you go up and then you clear all the byproducts like the lactate and the hydrogen ions, and you actually can use some of that lactate for fuel. So we're touching on all the big things now. If it's your first time and you went up to maybe like 12 miles before your half marathon, we can cut down to like 8 miles for your long run. Same thing, we can hit a little bit of work at goal pace. If you feel more comfortable around that like 3 to 4 mile range, it won't be as fatiguing, and you will still touch on the important things that I just mentioned for if you are above your half marathon distance for your long runs. Week 2, that's going to be where we have a more dramatic cut. So you're going to be closer to like 40 or 50% of your total volume from your peak week. So again, let's say you hit, we can do easy numbers here for 40 miles a week, 50%, you're going to be around 20 miles for that week. That sounds pretty small, but we want it to be. We want it to be something where your body feels pretty good in that run. So, or in that week. You'll get strides in. So I do like doing 4 by 30-second strides where you pick up the pace a little bit. You're not hammering, but you're maybe a little faster than your half marathon pace. It really just gets the brain in the groove of things, saying like, yep, we're still training. We still have to be on top of our stuff. And then the other days, pretty easy. So like for me, I'm a fan of 3 days of running and then race day. So the day before I race, it depends on my traveling situation, really. If it's really stressful to try and get a run in, I probably just won't do it. But if that's the case 2 days prior, I will for sure get a run in, an easy 2 to 3 mile shakeout, really just to get some of the jitters out. But that week, I'm not doing anything really more than like 4 miles. So we want to reduce volume so that we feel good on that race day. Actually, one more thing for a half marathon. 8 days out, I do like doing not an 8 plus or minus. It doesn't have to be exactly on that, but for me, if I'm racing on a Saturday, the previous Friday, I'll probably do a workout where I get like 2 miles at goal pace. Again, just so I can touch on it, with like a total of like 6 to 8 miles. So I'm really reducing that long run there. And let's come to our marathon. This is where there's some deviation in who likes what. It can be a 2 or a 3 week taper. Some people do even less. Some people really like the idea of staying on top of their volume, and it makes them feel better and more confident going into race day. There's one athlete that I know in particular, he actually doesn't really taper. His intensity will drop a little bit so he feels good, but then he'll go race a full marathon off of like an 80-mile week. So all of this is always going to be dependent on the person, but by and large, this is what you're going to see as the general rules of thumb. It's going to be 2 to 3 weeks depending on you. So for me, I'm looking at the peak week to be about 3 weeks out, and then I like a 2-week taper. But let's hit the 3 first. If you want to do a 3-week taper, week 1, you're going to be at 75 to 80% of your volume, so it doesn't really feel all that different, but you start to recover just a little bit better that week than you normally would. 2 weeks out, you're going to drop to 65 to 75% of your normal volume. And then the final week is going to be 40 to 50% of your peak week volume. That's going to give your body plenty of time to re-up glycogen stores. If you feel beat up, it'll be a really good opportunity for your body to heal, because you do have like a ton of micro trauma that comes from doing marathon training. Like, it is not easy on the body. So when you get to race time, you want to feel good to go. You don't want to feel like you've got a bunch of nagging things. If you feel like anything is bugging you, you can start a little bit early on that taper, closer to that 3-week time frame. If you're doing 2 weeks out, 2 weeks out, you're going to be around 70% of your volume. So that's going to be a more dramatic cut because we're hitting that reduction in volume harder, but it's over a shorter time. So we don't want to lose fitness. If you just didn't run for 3 weeks at all, you wouldn't feel very fit, but we want to have time for our bodies to heal. So 2 weeks out, you're going to be at 70%. The 1 week out, you're going to be at 40% of your weekly volume. So that's a more aggressive drop because it is a shorter time frame. It's what I prefer just because I enjoy training. I like being out. I get a little stir crazy if I go too far out in advance, and you can only hold a taper for so long before fitness starts to decrease. So super relevant. You need to know your body. You need to know your current situation. You need to know how healthy you are and how you respond. But that is like the general gist. Also, I see there are still some folks in the chat. If you have any like running stuff, it doesn't even have to be taper related. If you've got any questions or comments, by all means, drop them. I'm happy to check in with you all. So again, it all depends on your body, how you're feeling, what you are trying to get out of your taper, how important a race is for you, and what you're planning on doing after that race. So that was most of what I had actually written down for the day. That was a pretty solid 15-minute soliloquy of me just talking. If you guys have questions, I would love to talk to you guys. That's my favorite part of these live streams. But if I don't have anything going on, I will just move on and see if I can't plan the live stream for next week so I can get this up a little bit earlier. I know I've been getting them up a little bit late. Also, somebody else just joined the chat. Hey, welcome in. What's going on with your running? What are you doing? Is there anything that a random guy on the internet can help you do with your running? Also, I guess I should say this. If you are seeing the replay on this and you made it this far, that means you found some amount of value out of it. Take a look at the Ontos running brand. It is my running brand. I have it linked down below. I am trying to make really cool gear for folks out there. The hat is like my really main thing. I have put a ton of time and effort into making it right. It's taken like almost a year, and I almost have the hats, but they're on their way. They're like 30 days away. But yeah, if you find this helpful and you stayed this long, definitely give ontosrunning.com a look. Okay, I don't see anybody popping in. I think my plan for next week is, I don't know, I've bounced a couple ideas around in my head. Again, if you guys are in the chat, let me know what sounds interesting to you for me to talk about for next week. I've thought about fueling again because we've talked about that before. I've thought about my favorite shoe for long runs. Not sure if I want to go shoe route or if I want to go more of the educational, like talking about coaching stuff. Randolph, good morning. Question today is, what are reasonable expectations do improvements to the pace? What are reasonable expectations do improvements to the pace? Do you mean like with a taper? What do you think you would expect to see in terms of pace? Let me know. If that's what I'll assume that's what you mean. If that is not what you mean, correct me. You can see like a couple percent increase in pace. So like if we're talking about a marathon where you're running for 4 hours, that's 240 minutes. If you have a 2 to 3% improvement, that's going to be like 5 to 8 minutes faster with a good taper. Just some like real round ballpark numbers. If that's not what you meant, let me know. I will answer more questions. Also, how was you were on your way to a race, right? Last week? Let me know how that went. This is my favorite part. This means I can drink coffee and wait for a reply. We need to actually warm said coffee up with more coffee. Oh, Randolph, I'm so glad you popped in. Otherwise, I was about to end the stream. Not so much the pace, but just pace improvements with strength training and different running workouts. Oh, got it, got it. So, I mean, tremendous, right? The more you are doing the thing and staying healthy, you can see dramatic improvements. The stronger you are, the more resilient you're going to be. The more resilient you are in terms of racing, like at the end of races, if you're strong enough that you're not like cramping and overly fatiguing, your body's not going to send as many signals of fatigue. So like fatigue is a really big blanket term that encompasses a lot of things. So if you have a bunch of muscular damage and it's more than your body is really comfortable with, 10K was done in 55 minutes, very flat course. Heck yeah. How was that in terms of your goal pace? That's really solid. Sub 10-minute pace, that's pretty dang good. I was going off of strength training and fatigue. So if you have a lot of muscular damage and it's more than your body's comfortable with, it's going to say, hey, you're actually really, really tired. Let's slow down. So that's one area of fatigue. Then you've got like your aerobic system. Like if you run anything for long enough, any sort of engine or machine long enough, eventually something's not going to feel good, feel right. And that's when you're going to run into a decrease in aerobic energy production. So you have to start using more anaerobic energy, and then you start hitting your lactate threshold at a lower speed. So even though you're running the same pace, you now might be above your lactate threshold, which is going to slow everything else down. Or we can have our fueling as fatigue. So if you start running out of glycogen, again, you could be running the same pace. As soon as you're starting to dip on glycogen, your body's going to go, hey, actually, you're way more tired than you think. So all of that to say, fatigue plays a big role in this. The stronger you are, you're taking one bucket and saying, nah, this isn't really an issue. For your running workouts, if you are more comfortable, if you start pushing your threshold up, you are going to remove that bucket, that middle bucket. So we aren't hitting our threshold as early in a run. Again, even at the same paces. So we're putting that off to the side. And then if you practice fueling and you get better at consuming carbohydrates throughout your run, and I'm going to put something we didn't talk about yet. So consuming carbohydrates during your run is going to help reduce fatigue because we have more fuel in the system. So we remove that. And then overall, if we have more running, not even necessarily workouts or strength training, but if we get more easy, long, slow distance aerobic miles, we're going to get better at using fat for fuel. And we're going to get better at we're going to increase capillary density. So we're going to be better at getting blood and oxygen to the muscles, and we're going to be better at using stored fat for fuel. So again, fueling is not as much an issue if we get a lot of long, slow distance. So you can see really big improvements. I mean, that's how people go from running 55-minute 5Ks way down, like to 50 or 45 minutes or even 40 minutes for a 5K. Then we're talking about other components like, are we increasing our maximum speed enough to where we can run sub-maximally at 40-minute pace or what have you? Like 40 minutes is obviously a big jump, but you can see a lot of improvement as we are removing factors of fatigue. Basically right at your goal, didn't want to set too high of a goal with heat and humidity, and it was really a slot would have been an easy run day. Got it. Yeah, I mean, if you go for what should be an easy run day and you can run right around your goal pace, I would call that a pretty big win, personally. That's exciting. Especially with heat. And heat early in the year is hard because our bodies aren't used to it yet. So heat's another source of fatigue, actually. As your core temperature heats up, your body says, hey, I don't like that either. Let's reduce our pace because I'm scared we're going to overheat. And it doesn't want to do that. So that's another source of fatigue, actually. Early in the year, we are less adapted to it as well. So some people will do sauna or a hot tub or a hot bath throughout the year to make sure their body can handle heat really well when it starts getting towards the hotter season. There are just tons and tons of benefit to heat exposure. For running, it's actually hard because we're pretty inefficient. So we start to make heat when we run, right? So that's why we get hot. It's because for every one used calorie for energy, we make 2 heats. So we do 2 calories of heat. A calorie is actually a unit of measurement to bring 1 gram of water up 1 degree Celsius. I think it's from 14 to 15 degrees. It's been a minute since I touched on that exact number. But yeah, so when you are burning calories that turn into heat, that's going to make you hot. So we have to be ready for it. When we can't push enough heat out into the ambient environment, it's going to make it harder on us to handle the heat because it's not going away as fast. That was fun. I feel like that was a pretty solid clip. But yeah, heat and humidity are a killer. That's one of the hardest ones. I think I would rather be underfueled than be in like really, really terrible heat conditions. Like both are bad, but heat's really, really rough on the body, especially if you're not used to it. That said, you can also adapt to that. So you can get better heat shock proteins. You can get better at circulating blood to the periphery, so like up to the skin so that it can go off into the environment. Like lots of cool stuff you can do on that. What else have you got going on this week? Do you have any like fun runs you're doing? Do you have any other races you're looking forward to in the next couple of weeks? I've got my 50K in 2 weeks' time, so that should be pretty fun. I'm excited for it. I'm going to run it relatively easily because I want to get into a jump in mileage starting in like 3 or 4 weeks. So 50K, pretty easy, hopefully less muscular damage because we aren't running as hard and we aren't depleting glycogen stores as much because again, we aren't running as hard, so we have a higher amount of energy we can burn from fat. All good things that are going to make it a little bit easier for me to recover. And then the goal will be to get into the week after will be a down week. We'll do like probably 20 miles closer to the end of the week. Then we will hopefully go 40 so long as the body feels good. Like I'm not going to force anything, but if the body feels good, we'll hop back up to 40. Hold that for 1 more week. So 40 miles. And then we're going to hop into a training block where we really rocket up our mileage. I think we want to be at 50 miles, hold that for a couple of weeks. So 20, 40, 40. Then we're going to progress. We're going to go 42 and a half, 45, 47, 50. Then do a down week. Then go back to 45, 50, 50 down week, and then 50, 50, 50 down week, and see if we can make 50s just like really comfy, make sure the body can fully adapt to it and keep it up from there. Had your long run this morning, putting it off until tomorrow. Raining got the past 12 hours. Tomorrow expected to clear. Oh, let's go. 16 miles is going to be a dang good long run. That's going to be doing all the things we love to see. It actually looks like it stopped raining. I am headed out to my long run right after this stream. So if the rain holds off, that'd be really cool. But today is going to be my last long run before I do the 50K. So like I said in this video, we're trying everything out. We're doing race day shoes. We're doing race day tights. I'm doing the hand bottle that I'm going to have with me throughout. We've got the hat that we're wearing. I will probably change shirts, but I already know because I've run in the other tank a lot that I'm going to be more comfortable in that tank. I I don't want to, it's kind of cold and I don't want to run in a tank when I'm cold. So we'll be all right. Because again, I've practiced a lot of the stuff before. Randolph, I was talking about things I might go over in next week's live stream. Is there anything that would be helpful for you? I'd be like super fair or super happy to, I mean, do one specifically for you if there's any like areas of your training that you're particularly interested in hearing me talk about. Like, always happy to do it. Got a pair of the Gore-Tex Ons a few months ago, so I was looking forward to see if they worked, but I guess chickened out there. Yeah, it's always a tough one because like you want to you want your feet to be dry, but if it's soaking wet, I actually don't go for waterproof shoes as much. Like I expect the trails that I'm going to go run today are going to be pretty gross, and I would actually just rather have a pair of shoes that are good at breathing so I can push the water out as opposed to having a shoe that if water gets into it, you're kind of SOL because just as water doesn't come in, it doesn't really go out very well for waterproof shoes. Um, so I think there is a time and place for waterproof shoes. By and large, I think it's when I'm out doing like normal things. So like walking through dew or grass that's really wet. That's like a perfect use case for it. If you're out and you know it's done raining and you don't think there are going to be like huge puddles you're stepping into, that's a good time to do it too. You just don't want wet feet inside of waterproof shoes. I have that conversation a whole lot at the running store. People come in wanting um, waterproof shoes, and I'm like, "Are you sure you want waterproof shoes?" But again, good to have. It's useful to have them. Very nice. Do we have any more coffee? Oh, we got just a tiny bit more. Love to see it. Love being well caffeinated before a long run. Ooh. Oh, good day. Sorry there aren't more folks in the chat today. I think it's really fun when we've got a big crew in here. But I'm glad you came. It always makes it a lot more fun for me to have somebody to talk to rather than just being like really specific on, I don't know, marathon prep stuff. um, yeah. Let me know. Is there anything that'd be helpful for you for me to talk about? If not, I'll come up with something. And I think I need to get them up earlier. I feel like I've been doing them kind of last minute in terms of like putting up the thumbnail and stuff on here. So I'm going to try and fix that. Should I do the Coros fitness test once a month to gauge my improvement? Yeah, I love that. It's pretty hard, so I would make sure you feel good. But I think it actually follows a nice cycle if you were to do it once a month. I don't know what your training looks like right now, but if you go up, 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 down week, so 3 weeks where you progress and then a down week, I like doing it like in the middle of my down week. So I'll go up to whatever the peak is for that mini, like, mesocycle. And then I will do the fitness test like as I'm starting to feel better, but I don't want to blow myself up going into the next week. So I want to feel good. Like whatever day you feel good on your down week is where I would do it. And then I do think it's nice. I really like Coros because they don't change the fitness gauge a ton. I know Garmin will like change it all the time, and I think that's not great. So it'll be like, oh, your fitness went down. It's like, I didn't do anything different. Why did my fitness go down? And Koros, admittedly, is a little bit static. I think it would be cool if it updated it a little more. Like if you're consistently in the optimized area, like of course you're going to be more fit than when you started. I don't think you should have to do the fitness test for that to update. But yes, for your question, if you want to see it month over month, I think it's a really good tool for it. I think it's like pretty dang scientific. I remember you were asking about the foot pod. I wouldn't use that as much as the heart rate monitor. I do use the Coros heart rate monitor quite a bit. It's still an optical sensor, so it's the one that goes around your arm. So it's not perfect. It's not like measuring electrical activity like the chest straps do. But I don't like the chest strap, so I'm not going to wear it. So I would rather have the heart rate monitor that I like and is going to be more accurate than the wrist based one. So if you're going to grab anything else from Koros, I would say grab the heart rate monitor so you aren't relying on the watch. Like the watch heart rate monitor can sometimes get cadence locked. So if you're running 165 beats per minute or 165 steps per minute, if the watch is too far up and it's on top of your wrist bone, it has a really hard time reading the your heart rate as it's up there. So if you don't have it, like I'll run with it back here so it has an easier time catching my heart rate. Or again, I keep it where I like it, and then I will run with a heart rate monitor if I am specific about heart rate. The reason I say all of that is the fitness test goes off of heart rate and pace. So it looks at your GPS data and it looks at your heart rate data and it says, oh, you were running this pace easier than last time. And they've got some like pretty cool algorithms that say, yep, you are more fit because you were running easier, or you were running at the same heart rate, but you were running faster, or you were running slower and your heart rate was proportionately more slow. So you have gotten faster as well. I feel like that was a really long one too, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. Because I do like good, reliable heart rate data. So I don't do a ton of heart rate based training, but like yesterday, I really didn't want to over push because I have my long run today. I did 8 miles relatively easy and went for the heart rate monitor. So I knew if I was over 150 beats per minute that I needed to slow down. You actually got the heart rate strap before the watch since I was going to pair it with my Garmin. Then they told me they aren't compatible. It is compatible. The Coros heart rate monitor can go to the Garmin watch. One of my really good friends, he has a Garmin Instinct 2 Solar, 2X Solar. And he uses the Coros heart rate monitor all the time. I think it's like it uses the universal Bluetooth signaling. So yeah, that should totally work. But yeah, huge fan of the heart rate strap. I'm glad you have it already then. I think that is more useful than the Stride Pod. Not to say Stride Pod isn't useful though. Okay, maybe I meant I can't pair Garmin to the Coros app. That could be it. That could be possible. Oh, actually, that is true. You cannot pair a Garmin watch into the Coros app. That's for sure correct. But heart rate monitor should work on a Garmin watch. But I'd rather just have a Coros watch because I think the interface is better. I feel bad because Garmin could be so good, and I think they could really like put some pressure on Coros. But Coros has just been crushing it. They've put all the pressure onto Garmin, and then Garmin releases the 70 and the 170, and it's like Coros Pace Pro is on sale for $300 now. And I just saw that the other day. The Garmin Forerunner 170, which is absolutely lower standard than the Pace Pro is. It's $300, and then if you want to do music, it's $350. Like, mind-boggling. I think Garmin could snuff out most of the competition, but they just don't care. My understanding is they actually do way better on non-running related stuff. Seems like the running stuff is just a kind of offshoot for them, but that's just what I've heard from other folks in Reddit and stuff. So the Garmin gear itself is actually pretty good. It's just I don't think they hit the value area very well, and I think their app kind of sucks. I think I've got just a couple of more minutes before I need to get ready for my run. I actually still have to dry my half tights, even though it started raining again, so I don't know how much that's relevant because they're just going to get wet. Eh, at any rate, I'll be here for a couple more minutes if you got anything else. Let's see, I'm curious how many frames we dropped. Only 1.6% dropped frames. Agree, the app is so weak, man. It's so weak. Why don't they care? Again, it's because money, but like, I don't think it would take them that much effort to make it really good. Like, do Garmin's version of the Coros app. Just look at what Coros is doing. Do the Coros training programs. But what I will say is Coros really listens to the athletes and the sports scientists. So it's like they just continue to improve and iterate and make things better and better and better. And Garmin is just like stagnant. So Coros is putting so much pressure on that they're just going to keep eating market share. Like, when you convince someone like me who manages a running store that this is a far superior product at a much better price point, anytime somebody comes in and asks my advice, I will tell them about both, but I'll say, hey, go with Coros. And that's how people like Garmin just drop and drop and drop. Yeah. Shake my head at them. I had another thought, but I don't remember what it was now. Man, totally slipped my mind. Which store do you manage in North Carolina? It's called Mountain Running Company. So it's a really cool spot. It's a locally owned store. So we've got 3 locations: Boone, Black Mountain, and Asheville. I manage the Boone location. It's really nice, independent, so we don't have like a big company telling us what to do. We just kind of do what we think is best, which is really cool. So I get to actually have a lot of input on what we have in the store, what we're bringing in the next year and stuff. So the owners are really cool. They give me a fair amount of autonomy while still like helping things run in the right direction. But yeah, if you're ever up in the area, I would love to have you stop by. I've been there, or well, I am there most hours the store is open, just not Saturdays because I have live stream and long runs to do. Where are you geographically located, Randolph? If you have said it before, I apologize. Might drop by, might drive down to Georgia next month. You're not too close to I-85. Unfortunately, the mountains are kind of out of the way. Maps. Let's see. 85. No, it's a little ways out from 85. So you'd come down like from Richmond, Virginia, and if you stay on 85, it'll take you over towards like Greensboro. But Greensboro is about an hour and a half from us. So that's a little ways out. Um, more 85 coming over this way through Greenville. Greenville's not terribly far. I mean, Charlotte is 2 hours, but that'd be a decent bit of detour. But yeah, I see where that goes through Atlanta. Northern Virginia and hang out in DC often. Man, DC seems so cool. I don't know why right now, like the past 3 to 6 months, I'm like, man, I really want to go to DC. It just feels like such a big thing to do, like a big to do to go up there because traffic is as crazy as it is, and I don't go around cities super often. I think doing the Marine Corps Marathon would be really cool, but I've heard it makes everything around even more expensive. Yeah. So, Northern Virginia, fastest way from there, if you're like towards like Fredericksburg or Harrisonburg or Charlottesville or Richmond at all, you're going, I don't know, probably like 5 hours or so. I think your better bet would be like 64 to 81. And then maybe like 77 is what it looks like. But yeah, if you ever have a reason to come up to the mountains, I'd love to have you stop by the store. I think meeting folks in real life is so cool because, like, I don't know. I think community is really important. Will do. Sounds good. Well, Randolph, I think I'm going to head out for the day. I do want to get this run done before too long. I've got a fun date night planned with the wife. So I think I'm going to get going. I hope you have a great day. Again, huge ups on your race. Glad you were able to run well. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see for next week's live stream. If not, I think I'm gonna put something up right now, just so I don't have to worry about it for next week. Um, and if you have anything you want to talk about, I'd be happy to do it. But for now, I hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you later. See you, Randolph.